Donald Trump and his administration have changed what it means to walk down the street in America. 374 days ago, an American citizen did not need to worry about carrying a passport or worry that they would be pinned to the ground for being unable to prove that their hometown was in fact the only home they have ever known.
There's an old political proverb: when the facts are weak, the speech gets dramatic. So grab your coffee, tea, or something stronger if it's been a long day, because what happened in this hearing was pure political theater, until Senator John Kennedy grabbed the mic and flipped the script. If you want real breakdowns without the media spin, smash the like button and subscribe to KRIS Reacts right now, because this moment says a lot about where America's headed. Stick around until the end, because the final takeaway from this clash is bigger than one hearing.
The loss of life in Minneapolis was a tragedy, and I'm sorry it happened. Number two, this is the second thing that I know. You don't have to be Einstein's cousin. You don't have to be a senior at Caltech to know that illegal immigration is illegal. Duh. It's illegal. And those of us who believe that no one is above the law, we all say we believe that. I believe it. No one, those of us who say that no one is above the law have to concede that people in our country illegally are not above the law either. The law applies to them as well. Our immigration statutes are not second-tier laws. They matter just as much as the other statutes that have been passed by the elected members of Congress. And just like the other laws, the immigration laws have consequences and should have consequences if you violate them. Third and final point. You have the right to protest in America. Let me say that again. You have the right to protest in America. You do not have the right to protest violently. And in fact, violence, as you protest, undermines the morality of the thing that you're protesting over. Let me say that again. Violence, if you choose violence when you protest, that undermines the morality of the movement that you say your movement is based upon. You know who else understood that? Dr. King. King understood it. Gandhi understood it. Mandela understood it. Violently protesting, not protesting, but violently protesting undermines the morality that you say your cause is built upon. It's also dangerous. It's dangerous as it's dangerous and it's stupid. It's 12-piece bucket of stupid. Because when you protest violently, when you interfere with a cop or an ICE officer, it's not going to end well. It's not. Under the best of circumstances, these officers are trying to enforce federal law. And the people with respect to whom they're trying to enforce federal law are in most cases, I'm not going to say all cases, but in most cases are criminals. Not criminals because they're here illegally, though that too is a violation of our law, but criminals because they have violated other laws, in many cases felonies. And those ICE officials, those cops are scared. They're scared. They're dealing with someone who could be armed, someone who could be dangerous. So you've got a powder keg. And when protesters choose to protest violently and harass those ICE officials and blow whistles in their ears and block their way and spit in their faces and curse them and curse their children, they're giving off sparks in a powder keg. And it's not going to end well in many cases. I'm sorry we're at this point. But
So here's the scene. Adam Schiff walks in with a speech that sounds like the trailer to a dystopian movie. According to him, America has changed so much that citizens should basically be afraid to walk down the street. You could almost hear dramatic music playing behind the words. But then Kennedy speaks, and suddenly the fog machine turns off. Kennedy starts with something so simple it almost feels sarcastic. Illegal immigration is illegal. That line cuts straight through the performance, because once you strip away the drama, that's the core issue. If no one is above the law, then the law applies to everyone. That includes immigration law. He also did something smart that a lot of commentators ignore. He separated tragedy from principle. He acknowledged that loss of life in Minneapolis was tragic. That matters. But he refused to let tragedy become proof that the entire system is broken. That's a key distinction. In a constitutional republic, bad outcomes don't automatically make the law illegitimate. Then Kennedy moved to protests, and this part hit hard. He said Americans absolutely have the right to protest. That right is sacred, but violence destroys the moral authority of any movement. That idea isn't new. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Mahatma Gandhi, and Nelson Mandela all understood the same principle. When protests turn violent, the cause loses credibility, and the situation becomes dangerous fast. Kennedy's powder keg analogy really explains the tension. Law enforcement officers are enforcing federal law. Protesters escalate. Emotions rise. That combination creates volatile situations. It's not complicated. Sparks plus tension equals disaster. Here's what stood out to me most as a commentator. This wasn't just about immigration policy. This was about redefining enforcement as something sinister. Because once enforcing the law is framed as oppression, the people enforcing it become villains. That's a huge rhetorical shift. And here's the bigger question Kennedy raised without even saying it directly. Do laws matter all the time, or only when they're politically convenient? Because if enforcement becomes optional, then laws become suggestions. Whether you agree with Kennedy or not, the clarity of his argument is why this moment resonated. He wasn't theatrical, he wasn't shouting. He sounded like someone tired of word games, and a lot of Americans relate to that. This hearing felt like two completely different visions of America colliding. One says enforcement equals oppression. The other says law without enforcement isn't law at all.